Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Mike Norvell in Florida State. The biggest surprises for this football team up until this point in 2025. The best part about this episode, it could go an hour long. Like the whole gosh darn football team is a little bit of a surprise for a lot of us. What fires me up about this episode the most, it allows us to get into the why. Why is this football team in 2025 so much different from the football team that we saw in 2024? And we're going to get nitty gritty with it. We're going to talk about some players and some position groups that are comfortably surpassing our expectations for what they were going to be in 2025. But I want to start a little bit more overarching. Number one, and I'm a firm believer in this, that the number one reason this team is experiencing the success that it's experiencing in 2025 is the new coordinators, the new coaching staff in general. This is both Gus Malzahn and Tony White have looked at this roster, have largely built this roster to fit what they want to do on both sides of the football. And you look at a guy like Tommy Castellanos, was he the most high profile quarterback that was available in the portal back in the winter? No, absolutely not. He was benched at Boston College. If it weren't for Florida State coming along, I don't think he would get a ton of upper power four offers or opportunities. What Gus Malzahn saw was, hey, this is a quarterback that fits what I want to do on offense. So we're going to go take a stab at Tommy Castellanos. We're going to build the offense around his skill set because it fits what I want to do on offense. You can use that example and pretty much look at every single transfer portal addition Florida State made on both sides of the football, because you look on the offense and say, hey, we want to be able to run the football and we want to push the ball vertically down the field when we throw it. Well, Tommy Castellanos, you know what he adds running the football. Deuce Robinson, you know what he brings when we're trying to push that football vertically down the field. You can say the same thing for a guy like Squirrel White. Look at the offensive line. These are a bunch of road graders on the offensive line. I don't know if this Florida State offensive line is the best in pass protection. Gus Malzahn said, hey, don't give a damn if Micah Pettis has some problems in pass protection, because guess what? We ain't going to ask him to pass protect that often in this Florida State offense. Go look at the defensive side of the football. Instead of going after these high-profile defensive linemen, like we knew damn well we needed to retool the defensive line. We needed to add bodies. We needed to add talent. Instead of going after a guy like Marvin Jones, who, former five-star, guy that has very much potential to be a very good football player at the power four level, we're going to go for guys that not only have shown they can do it, but more importantly than that, we're going to get guys that fit what we're looking for on defense as well. Like, what are the two things that we need to see in this Tony White defense? Number one is versatility on the defensive line. Look at a guy like Deontay McCray. Look at a guy like DeMonte Diggs or a guy like Jason Jenkins. All of these guys, although not the most coveted defensive linemen that we saw in the portal, were all perfect fits for what Florida State wanted to do. That's kind of what stands out to me the most, is this roster there was a clear vision when this new staff went to build this roster. And it was not, we're going to get the flashiest names. We tried that last year and it was an utter failure. We're going to go out and use the transfer portal to get guys that fit what we want to do on both sides of the football. And you got two new coordinators now, and Gus Malzahn and Tony White, who are saying, hey, I got a bunch of guys who are good players, talented football players, but more importantly, they bring the exact skill set I need to run my offense and run my defense in Tony White's case. That's what stands out to me the most. That's the biggest reason I think you've seen Florida State turn this thing around. Is last year, a bunch of flashy names. DJU, flashy name. Malik Benson, flashy name. You look at a guy like Marvin Jones, flashy name. There was no real plan. There was no real identity to this football team. In 2025, there is. It might not be the flashiest roster that you see in the 2025 college football season, but gosh darn it, does it fit what both sides of the football want to do? That's the biggest reason we've seen the turnaround. Now, what are the biggest surprises? That's what I want to get into before we do. And as always, the Florida State fans, appreciate you guys. And many of y'all been rocking with the boys through the highs and lows, and we say it all the time. Appreciate you guys. It is a heck of a lot more fun talking about this football team when we're talking about them winning games. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. Biggest surprise for me, this offensive line. And I think it might be one of the biggest reasons Florida State is experiencing the success it is. Now, am I stunned that this offensive line is kicking ass in the run game? No, not really. Like, you kind of knew when you looked at this offensive line on paper, it's a bunch of guys that have played a lot of Power 4 football that have shown they're really good run blockers. The bigger surprise for me is what they've done up until this point in pass protection as well. Last year on the offensive line, Florida State gave up 94 quarterback hurries on the offensive line. One of the worst in the country. Through three games for Florida State on the offensive line, there's only been 5 quarterback hurries given up. My biggest takeaway, my biggest surprise here for me is that, okay, we're doing a really good job moving bodies off the line of scrimmage and stimulating this run game. But when we want to go drop back and throw the football, and again, when you want to throw the football and you want to push it down the field, you got to hold up in pass protection first. Florida State's been really damn good holding up in pass protection as well. Micah Pettis has been extremely impressive holding up in pass protection on the right side of this offensive line. And you got to give a massive golf clap for Herb Hand. We knew we had the talent. I think the biggest, the biggest storyline for me was you got a bunch of offensive linemen that haven't played a lick of football together. Was it all going to come together? What was that continuity? What was the chemistry going to look like? Really, really impressive. Dealing with stunts, dealing with games, dealing with second level pressures. I've been really, really pleased with what I've seen from the offensive line. Number 2, and maybe the biggest surprise for Florida State all year, Micahi Danzy. He is just a playmaker. He's emerging as a guy that it's hard to get him off the football field because of how much of a playmaker he is when he has the football in his hand. Micahi Danzy has 9 touches on the year, 5 carries, 4 catches. He is averaging 33 yards per touch. Every time this kid touches the football, good things are happening for Florida State. You love how Gus Malzahn is using him. Is Micahi Danzy the most all-around complete wide receiver in the country? No, not quite frankly, not even close. With all due respect to Micahi Danzy, really fast playmaker with the football in his hands. That's kind of all he is right now. Said, okay, that's fine. We will figure out ways, selective ways, to get him involved in this offense. You can say the same thing for a guy like Jalen Lucas. Is Jalen Lucas the best running back, or I'm going to think of a better way to frame it? Is Jalen Lucas the most complete running back in the country? No. Is he the most complete pass catcher in the country? No. Can he be a difference maker for this Florida State offense? Yes, in select ways. Well, let's use him in those select ways. Same thing for Micahi Danzy. And you're using him in so many different ways, and he's providing consistent sparks for this Florida State offense. And then lastly, hey, Tommy has a thrower. And this might be the most under-the-radar story that's going on with Florida State right now is, are we all that surprised that Tommy's running this Gus Malzahn offense well when it comes to running the football? No. Like, there's plenty of tape that tells us Tommy Castellanos is an electric factory when he has the football in his hands. The biggest surprise for me is he's legitimately spinning the football. I mean, take a look at the numbers. A 71% completion percentage with an average depth of target of 15 yards down the field. Incredible number. He is 12 of 18 on throws, 10 plus yards down the field. He is throwing just as good of a deep football as anybody in the country. He's attacking the boundary at an extremely high level. The ball is getting out of his hands on time, accurately. He is running this Florida State passing attack about as good as you could ask. That was the big question. Hey, we knew Florida State would have some semblance of a run game with Tommy Castellanos running this thing. We kind of knew that if Florida State wanted to be a playoff team, Tommy was going to have to be a different thrower. Like a different thrower in terms of what we've seen on the film. Well, gosh darn it, through 3 games, that's exactly what we've seen. Now, again, the consistency aspect of Tommy is the thing that we're going to continue to look for. But with the 3-game sample size that we have so far, there is no complaints. And in fact, no complaints. You have to tip your cap to what Tommy is doing as a thrower of the football. Defensive side of the football, I think the biggest storyline for me is, look, I'm not super surprised that the secondary is good. My biggest surprise is what the front seven is doing against the run. If you told me going into the season, Florida State was going to open up against Alabama. Kevin Wynn, who is supposed to be in the two deep at that nose tackle position, a very important position to what Tony White wants to do. You're saying Kevin Wynn's going to miss the first couple of games, first month of the season. I said, well, it's going to be a tough first couple of months with Florida State stopping the run, right? And you just weren't really sure if you had the bodies in the front seven to bang with a good offensive line like Alabama. And Florida State, as it sits right now, is allowing 2.3 yards per carry. That's 10th best in the country. You got to give a lot of credit to the defensive linemen. A couple of guys that are just giving us way more value than we thought. Daniel Lyons, massive step in the right direction. Deontay McCray's come in and been everything we hoped, especially in the run. The Desir brothers. I mean, you got one of them, I believe it's Mandrill, number 93. He's leading this team in run stops. He's largely been the best defensive lineman against the run on this Florida State roster as a former 3-star recruit. That's a true freshman. Did we see any of this coming? I'll say this, KJ Sampson against Kent State, that's the best KJ Sampson has played in a Florida State uniform. I'm looking at it and saying, hey, I didn't think Florida State had that juice. And here's the other thing. Linebacker play. Been really good. We're making tackles. We're flying around the football field. It's not even the new faces. I mean, you talk about the Tony White effect here. And Tony White's come in, taking a linebacker room that was just straight up bad for the last couple of years, especially in 2024, and said, hey, Justin Cryer, Blake Nicholson, Omar Graham, all of a sudden we going to make them good linebackers. And they look like one of the better linebacker groups in the ACC up until this point. I don't think we saw that coming either. Biggest questions, because I think this is a storyline too, is, hey, Florida State looks like college football playoff team, right? If we want to beat Miami at home next weekend, if we want to make a run in the college football playoffs, what are some of the biggest questions remaining for this football team? Number one for me, it's staying healthy and what the depth looks like. I think that's a little bit of a concern for a lot of Florida State fans that follow this football team closely, specifically on the offensive line, maybe in the wide receiver room. The last thing I'll say, the pass rush, how good can Florida State be manufacturing pressure with just their front four? Go back to when Florida State's defense was one of the best in the country, when you had a guy like Braden Fisk and you had a guy like Jared Furs, you had a guy in Pat Payton on the other side that Pat Payton was not a perfect football player but could get after the passer. They had that ability. Is it elite right now? I don't know. Here's the other thing that makes you feel good about it, is it feels like everybody on this roster is getting better as a football player. More importantly than that, you got Tony White, who is really good at scheming up a blitz. And so even if you're not the best in the country at getting pressure with your front four, if you got a defensive coordinator that knows how to scheme pressure up, there are ways to get around that problem. This team looks good. There's been so many different surprises on this team. It's been a very, very fun football team to watch, and it's going to be a very fun football team to watch over the next couple of weeks. We'll close it there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.